In my 20-year span of drinking, I managed to get a couple of DUIs in my 20s, first one at 21. I looked at it and said, well, everybody gets a DUI when they're 21. Kind of developed this mentality that I'd try anything once, and if I liked it, I'd probably do it again. Every night, a bottle of liquor, or a 12-pack or more of beer. Typically liquor, though, in that phase, and it would be an entire bottle in a night, and I started buying bigger bottles, and that way they'd last me 2 nights. I was a guy in his 20s that was doing the thing that most people in their 20s do. I had done a really good job of surrounding myself with like-minded people. In my late 20s, I got my second DUI. I decided it was time to make some changes. I white-knuckled sobriety for a little over 150 days. I felt at that point that God was knocking on the door and trying to tell me something. I made the mistake of putting a time frame on, I'm going to go 150 days in sobriety and see where it goes from there. My birthday hit, I went out with some friends and thought to myself, my problem was with liquor. Beer never bugged me, I'll just have a few beers. I managed to do that. Some of the friends that I was with that night called me a couple days later, suggested that I come out and have a few more beers, and I was off again. During that period of sobriety, though, I had been in a car accident. I'd been rear-ended by a kid. I was at a stoplight. He was going roughly 50 miles an hour and messed my back up pretty good. The doctors introduced me to painkillers, opiates, at that point. I started taking those and started to notice a draw towards those. Now I had an issue with not only drinking beer, yet another downer, the painkillers. I really kind of lost it. It'd been a rough day at work, not because it was rough, because I'd made it rough. I knew at that moment that there was only one thing that was going to put me into the right place. And I folded my hands and I said a prayer out loud at work. And I asked God. I said, God, I'm not happy with the brand new truck I'm driving. I'm not happy with my dog. I'm not happy with my girlfriend. I hate all of this stuff. I don't know why I cannot find happiness. A few hours later, things hadn't gotten any better. I hadn't gotten that sign, and I found myself at the bar once again. I wound up over-consuming. $180 bar tab that night. Now that little voice inside my head that I'd been trying to filter out came into play that night. Something told me don't get in the truck. Something told me don't drive. I got in the truck and I started to make my way home. I don't remember real clearly how I went off the road. I just remember that I hit a branch that hung horizontally right about here on the windshield. And somehow that took and turned my truck at a 90-degree angle, which took out the passenger side of the bed, and it put me head on, dead center, into the very next tree in that line. A couple inches to the left, a couple inches to the right, the accident could have been a lot worse. The airbag went off, the seatbelt held. I actually woke up to OnStar in the truck asking me if everything was okay. There were witnesses there. They, along with OnStar, had called the cops. I remember having so much fear course through me at that moment. I did not know what I was going to do. I remember asking God why. And I remember that in that moment thinking, I get that I'm supposed to stop drinking and drugging and partying. I didn't need this obvious of a sign. That really kicked me off into the next phase of my life. I walked into this new lifestyle. I wound up getting myself into an outpatient treatment and started working a very strong program of recovery. I wake up every morning and I ask God that day, what can I do to help the person that's like me who's still struggling? A week after the accident, I got a letter in the mail from the manufacturer of the truck stating that there was a recall on the driver's side seatbelt, that in collisions they were failing, and my truck landed right in the middle of that range of serial numbers. My airbag worked, my seatbelt worked. Pretty powerful message. I was pretty angry and beside myself and still wondering why. And getting that letter in the mail more or less symbolized to me God saying, I let you live. I protected you through that. Now here's your chance to make right with the rest of your life. My dad actually told me not too long ago that he'd hit a point where he thought that he had lost his son. And he told me the other day he was proud of me and what I've done in the last year, and he was glad to have his son back. My parents had passed me a flyer for a new church opening less than 2 miles away from my house called GraceHill. Unfortunately, I did not make it to GraceHill on their opening Sunday, but I made it for the second one, and I haven't missed many Sundays since. And I'll tell you, it has been a great church for me. The pastor in the sermons, I always feel like he's talking directly to me. I'm more than willing to listen to the Word of God at this point in my life and develop a better understanding of how it is that I'm supposed to be living and what it is that I'm supposed to be doing with this gift that I've been given. My name is Scott Anderson, and this is where my story met his.